All right, so it's not an easy thing to change your story lens. It takes discipline and practice and imagination. Fortunately, those are three things that I think we do here every Sunday. We engage practice, discipline, and imagination. However, that we can change our story means that, of course, we live in a story already, and our current story is, to quote Pete Campbell from TV's Mad Men, "Not great, Bob." My favorite articulation of the present Mama Doll story comes to me from the philosopher Charles Eisenstein, who calls it the story of separation. He writes that, quote, "The story of separation essentially says that you are a separate individual among other separate individuals in this objective reality that has fundamentally nothing to do with you." So that's the Mama Doll story that we are operating in, not just individually, yes, not just as a church, yes, or a culture, but perhaps the entire paradigm, almost planetarily. So the story of separation is that of existential isolation. It's an isolation that, as isolation does, breeds fear, and fear coupled with power, which humans possess in abundance, thanks to thumbs, frontal lobes, and the ability thereby to extract, preserve, and store goods, leads to the compulsion to dominate. So separation thinking leads to domineering power over behavior. And if we are not ourselves individually dominating, we are persuaded to let others do the dominating for us. We hardly have a choice. It is the cultural and institutional world that we live in. It is the air that we breathe. It is not, however, an unavoidable condition of the human species. Not all humans throughout time have adopted the story of separation and power over as their central organizing perspective. In fact, given the vast sweep of human history, separation and domination are more rare than not. It's just that it's become the norm for the past 3,000 years or so. Nonetheless, there have been and continue to be individuals, movements, and even cultures that, to greater and lesser degrees of success, try to cultivate a different, less hierarchical, more equitable way. It's far from unprecedented. Domination is not human nature. And while those people who are trying to find that more equitable way tend to leave less of an archaeological imprint, they have had enough influence for us to know that the story of separation is not the only possible story. In fact, there is ample archaeological evidence for civilizations succumbing to hierarchies of separation and domination, only to reverse course, abandon the project, and return to a more equitable way of life. Equitable in both human and beyond human relationships. And that precedent and wisdom is our medicine and hope. For the story of separation has yet again reached a point of crisis. Now, I do not need to list the multiple concurrent terrors we currently face. You know them. You know that they are increasingly extreme to where it is hardly believable sometimes. But maybe the fracturing of belief is itself a fractal, and fracturing of the big story. Perhaps we are approaching a tipping point, a point at which the wound is finally so apparent that a cure can at last be administered. But before we consider a cure, we need a more particular diagnosis. And with that in mind, let us consider the primary vehicles for domination rooted in the story of separation. And a warning here. Whether we achieve a cure or not, the experience to come is none other than death. The present nexus of crises is also our greatest opportunity in a half a century to shift our story. And if we fail, the consequences may include a new dark ages at best, and the erasure of life on earth at worst. Meanwhile, if we succeed, it will still be a death experience, though in this case, a death that comes with a rebirth, like coming through a high fever. So let us hope that faith in a new birth may make the experience of death less frightening, but it will still be a death experience. Shifting from the story of separation will mean the death of the present system and systems of culture, politics, and our self-conception. It will trigger individual and cultural automatic defenses put in place within our own psyches by the story of separation. And in fact, we're clearly witnessing those defenses activated in the MAGA cult. But it's not just MAGA that reacts to dismantling the present story. It's us too. I have seen it with my own eyes. Sometimes in the mirror. We will react. We will react. Because we too will be dismantling parts of ourselves. These defenses may be aspects of ourselves that we did not know that we had, but operate us nonetheless. And that will be scary. And no matter how many times I warn you that they are there, we will all be surprised when you freak out. And freak out we shall, for at this point the revolution is inevitable. Its outcome is not. In fact, it is already underway. Our institutions are failing, our ecosystems are collapsing, our hearts are breaking for any number of reasons, and our sense of self and place is ever more uncertain. Dismantling the systems that grow out of the story of separation, dismantling those fractal stories, means dismantling ourselves. Dismantling the self can be scary. It can also be powerful. And if we are able to turn crisis to opportunity, we must each of us step into this work in good faith and willfully. You have a part to play. You may have several parts to play, and the parts you play are crucial. So that's the warning. Now, the diagnosis of the symptoms of the story of separation and domination. These are simple to name. Patriarchy, white supremacy, and class. Hierarchy are its most prevalent features. So I'm sure now you're thinking, well, phew, Thank God I don't have those. This is supposed to be, it's a baleful look. I don't know if I could do it. This is baleful. I'm afraid I have some sobering news. Do not excuse yourself. I've been in ministry for 15, I've been here for almost 3 years, and while it is very obviously not our intention to do so, such is the power of the story of separation and domination that the systems and thinking it invigorates, namely white supremacy, race supremacy, and patriarchy, including misogyny, homophobia, and transphobia. That to pretend that we are not somehow, or that we are somehow special enough to have been completely passed over by its insidious influence is some pretty elitist thinking. And it's untrue. I have witnessed, even here, unconscious misogynistic and racist behavior, often in the form of micro-otherings. No one here that I've seen has been intentionally awful, and often enough, these were done in the name of sociability. But that is exactly how nuanced and insidious racist and patriarchal thinking is. And it still hurts. It still belittles, demeans, dehumanizes, and reinforces the mama doll story of separation and power over. And by the way, it shouldn't, or it should, but can't go without saying, but patriarchy is projected by women as well as men. And sometimes even by those of any gender who think themselves feminists. Just as racist behavior and thoughts and systems can be easily, if unconsciously, promoted by self-proclaimed anti-racists. Of course, if you're in the work of either of those, you know that can happen to you. It's unconscious, but it's the unconscious part that we've got to work on, and that's the immediate mission. The most powerful stories operate unconsciously. So to disempower the story of separation, we must bring its unconscious compulsions to light. We must reveal our unexamined assumptions, including the behaviors that we were socialized into thinking were okay, but are not okay. Not now, not ever, not actually then either. It's just that we thought they were, right? So these often show up in nuanced ways that reinforce a worldview. For instance, once upon a time, it was socially acceptable to touch a woman on the hip, maybe as you're passing by. You're just making room. But that was never okay. A hip is somewhat intimate anatomy, and to touch it with impunity conveys a power over relationship and demeans the one being touched. It's the same with hugging without consent or making a little joke with personal sexual innuendo, even if it's self-deprecating. And in that instance, it is not only okay, but a moral and courageous act to say, I'd rather get to know you before hugs. Or, that joke made me uncomfortable. So consent is part of undoing hierarchy and power over. For us, we are by and large talking about small habits and unconscious micro-otherings that have pretty big negative impacts, so please be careful. Small assumptions that, when examined, lead to larger realizations about our mindset. That's what we're talking about. So consciously, I think we're on the right track. Institutionally, we're on the right track. In fact, you should be pleased to know that we have had to set a couple of compassionate but firm boundaries when folks here have behaved in such a way that the beloved community that is our stated goal is undermined. So sometimes that has been met with grace and humility, regret, and the willingness to learn and do better. It has also, on occasion, precipitated a freakout and a departure rather than a willingness to learn, repair, and reform. And that is also good. That means that we are institutionally unafraid to do the right thing, even when it is hard, weird, or costly. Because it is more harmful and more costly not to do the right thing. And everyone here deserves to feel safe and loved. But that does not mean that we, and I very much include myself in this, are done doing the work. To the contrary, we're just beginning. And given the pervasiveness of the story of separation and power over, it is true, with the unlikely exception of someone making anti-racism a professional pursuit, that we will never not be at just the beginning. And that does not mean that we should not start, nor that we should not be dedicated. This is the work of a lifetime, be that span 50 days or 50 years. To that end, the birth of the beloved community and a new story, I invite you into the central task of generations. I invite you to usher in a new paradigm of connection and interdependence, a worldview guided not by the golden rule, do unto others as you would see them do unto you, but the carbon rule. As you do unto others, you do unto yourself. This is a worldview that will be pervaded by the consciousness that I am of you, and you are of me. Incubating the new and ancient story of interdependence will require two brazen missions to occur simultaneously. We must both cultivate the story of mutuality, power with, and reciprocity. I am of thee, and you are of me. While concurrently and pointedly dismantling the manifestations of the story of separation as they have come to live in ourselves and our systems. Like the ravens in the story, we must radically diminish one narrative and reestablish a new and ancient one. We will be tricksters and creators, incurably curious about ourselves until we transform and set a new light to live by. So how do we do this? So I think just naming it is powerful. Just acknowledging the continuing effects of white supremacy and patriarchy on our psyches, relationships, and institutions. Just doing that is powerful work that produces its own momentum. Again, I'm not talking about their psyches and institutions. I'm talking about our psyches and institutions. Reveal and reform our own unconscious assumptions, behaviors, and attitudes, for if we are fractals, and even if we're not, changing ourselves is necessary to changing the whole. Practically, there are a few things you could do as well. I believe that our anti-racism team will be offering Anti-Racism 101 again soon, in the spring. So if you've never participated in a class like that, do so. If you don't think I'm talking to you, I'm really talking to you. Obviously, you can vote for folks who are nudging the needle toward equity. Most of you already do that, though, which is why it strikes me as odd that you would vote for someone else to do the work of building an equitable society while not engaging in the work yourself. Specifically, I mean that I know some of you are still giving money to corporations that are actively contributing to the maintenance of the power over paradigm. Purchasing from Target or Amazon, or for now, Starbucks, counteracts any progressive vote you've made. So stop funding dominators for a start. So a couple practical things you can do, but the real will happen far more subtly. It will manifest in your interpersonal interactions. It will show up in the way that you see the world, the way that you experience the world. After all, yes, when the story of interbeing emerges at last, there will be statistical evidence to point towards its ascendancy. But far more profound than that, and precedent to it, will be the feeling it engenders. When we realize our interbeing, you will feel it, and this is our task, together here, this and every Sunday, to cultivate. That was the most Freudian preacherly slip. It was the last line, too. That's terrible. This and every Sunday, to cultivate our sense that I am of thee and you are of me. Let us affirm our commitment in song. Please rise and embody your spirit.
From the light of days remembered burns a beacon bright and clear, guiding hands and hearts and spirits into set from fear. Fire of commitment sets our mind and soul ablaze when our hunger and our passion meet to call us on our way. When we live with deep assurance of the flame that burns within, then our promise finds fulfillment and our future can begin. From the stories of our living rings a song both brave and free, calling pilgrims still to witness to the life of liberty. When the fire of commitment sets our mind and soul ablaze, when our hunger and our passion meet to call us on our way, when we live with deep assurance of the flame that burns within, then our promise finds fulfillment and our future can begin.
Please remain standing for the benediction as we leave this place that we have built together with the light, with our ancestors, and with each other and our inheritors. Let us leave this place knowing that we've got work to do. Notice the thoughts and habits that have been given to you by generations who succumb to the story of separation and take seriously your role in writing a new and ancient story. I am of thee, you are of me. Let us go in peace, and let us go singing.
From the dreams of youth, into faith set free from fear, then the fire of commitment sets our minds and soul ablaze. When our hunger and our passion meet to call us on our way, when we live with deep assurance of the flame that burns within, then our promise finds fulfillment and our future can begin.